In this lecture, we will talk about refactoring your code. Often you will come to a point where your code will work, but you will recognize that you could improve the code by breaking it up into a series of functions that have specific jobs. This process is called refactoring. Refactoring makes your code cleaner, easier to understand, and easier to extend. We show an example of refactoring where we can step by step move the bulk of jobs, storing and getting user information into one or more functions. First, we make a function which combines all the tasks of storing, getting, and greeting user. So this is a big function called diff greet users. And in the function, create a file name called username.json. Then is a try, except, and else block. So in the try block, we try to open a function, open a file name as object to read this file name, read this user JSON if it exists. If it exists in working directory and has information, then the information will be load JSON.load to the username variable. If there's an error called file not found error in the try block, then the except block will be run, and the username will be created with the user input. So user will see what is the name, will input his name, then with open a file name is the username JSON. So we will save the username's information to this file because this file does not exist in the working directory. So we will get the new user name and save to this file. So use JSON dump function to save the username information to this file. Then we print a message. So if the try block has the username be saved from the username JSON file, so except block will be skipped and else block will be run. So we print out the information of the username which is stored in the username.json in the working directory. So this is call this function. So because the function greet user is doing more than just greeting the user, it's also retrieving a stored username if one exists and prompting for a new username if one does not exist. So let's refactor greet user so it's not doing so many different tasks. We will move the code for retrieving a stored username to a separate function called getStoredUsername and move the part of getting new user to another function called getNewUsername. So this function called getStoredUsername. So we will try to get stored username from username.json in the working directory. So try this block is much simpler. So we just try to open this object, open this file name as object and read and load the information from this file. So if this block gets information from username.json, then username will be created as a variable get information from username.json. Then the else block will run and will return this username, will return. But if file not found in this working directory, the except block will be run and this function will return none. So this function get stored username is very simple. The file exists in working directory and has information inside, so we will return the username. If not, file not found error will return none. And the second function called getNewUsername the job is to prompt the user to input his name. So user see the information and input the name, then the input name, the user's input username will be saved in the username.json. So with a with block, we open this file and use JSON dump function to write username's information to this file object. Actually, it's this file, and this function return username. And the big function called greet user now is much simpler. So username will get stored username. This function we created in the previous page. So inside this function, first we will call this function. Because this function is created outside of this is a global name, global scope. So inside of this function we can call this. And if username means if username get stored username is return a username, returns a username, so we call if username. So if the username is not empty, means get stored username, return a username from existing files, then we print out this username. Else means if username is empty, so we'll run the else function, else block. So username will call another function we created in previous page. Then this function will first store the user input name to the file in this working directory, and this function will also return the username. So username will get the returned value. Then we can print a message to give some information to the user. Then we call this greet user. So call this greet user the first time. For example, if no file, no username.json stored in the working directory, then user will input his name. Goes here. But second time, if we call this again, then the user will see the information in this block. We will show all these statements in Anaconda Spider. First, we move to we will see the file section 9 files and exceptions.py, and the link to this file has been added to the description of this video. So we move to the part of called lecture 7 refactoring. So first we make a function that includes storing, getting, and greeting user together. So this function called greet user will try to load this information from this file. So if not exists, file not found, we prompt the user to input his name and store this username to the file. And if the file exists, then we will run else block, will print out information. First we will see it. Then we will create this function. Then first time greet user will call this function, and because no file found in the working directory, so we input name. Then we call again. Then it will come back shady. So it works no problem. But now we try to refactor and moving some part of the code to get stored username function and moving another part to get new username function. So these two functions, get stored username and get new username, run. create it. Then get user will try to first get a stored username. If username stored, get the username, they will print, will come back. If no, not get stored username, it will show and call the get new username function to store the new input username. Then we create this function and we try to delete this file first. Then we call this function. First time there is no file exists, we input the username, so we'll remember to you back. Then we call again, will come back. So the results are the same, but the refactoring will make the code more structured